My name is Adrian Jensen, and today I'm going to be taking a regular Sharpedo figure and reimagining it as a ground type. And everything is going to go perfect, exactly according to plan. That's the best part. So there's my man Sharpedo, obviously half shark, half torpedo. This actually took some thinking to decide what I wanted to do with him. I didn't really have any first instinct on this, but I decided why not make him a ground type. I'm gonna obviously take some inspiration from Diglett and have the ring of rocks underneath. And I'm gonna go ahead and sculpt that base before I get to actually painting on Sharpedo himself, because I'm gonna use him to help me sculpt the base and I don't wanna ruin his paint job. So the first thing, well not the first thing, but one thing that I'm gonna need to put around him is some rocks, and I do happen to have some on hand. But the thing is, these are pretty big, obviously way too big for what I need them for. So I could go outside and try and find some rocks from out in nature, or I could just separate out tiny ones like that. But I'm gonna see if I could actually just kind of crush some of these with a hammer. Do you guys think I can do it? Leave a comment below if you think I can do it, and we'll find out together. I got my hammer out and I will hit this rock now. Oh no, I think I just shot it into outer space. No! Where did it go? Okay, never mind, I'll try again. I just gotta be a little more careful this time. Yeah! Okay, it worked. There was never any reason to doubt me. Make sure to like and subscribe. That's as easy as it gets. I'ma smash these rocks to bits. Let out it and call it quits. I'ma smash these rocks to bits. Please like and subscribe. Every time I hammer hits, helps me smash these rocks to bits. It actually did work. I had to be surprisingly gentle with it so they don't just go flying off into space. But it worked. I got my smaller rocks. I mixed up some epoxy sculpt and I squished Sharpedo right into it to make what can only be described as a Sharpedo-shaped dent. Then I grabbed some of my broken rocks and I squished them bad boys right in. Basically, I covered the thing in super glue too, mostly out of paranoia, I guess. These rocks are not coming out, not on my watch. Might be tough to see because it's clear, but that super glue and accelerant gave me a little bit of a rim around the edge, which I actually really like. I don't think I would have been able to sculpt that very easily. It's starting to warp a little bit, but the epoxy sculpt is still wet. So at this point, I just need to make sure that it's flat, make sure that Sharpedo still fits. It's gonna take a little finessing, and then that way I can just make sure that it dries in the correct orientation that I need it to. For Sharpedo himself, it's not really immediately obvious to me what I should be doing with him, because I don't really know how I would sculpt him any different, but I feel like I gotta do something or else it's kind of lame, right? Obviously, I don't want to paint him different colors. As far as adding features or taking features away, maybe I'll pull up some reference of some other ground type Pokemon that I can use for reference, I feel like the quintessential ground type is Diglett, But I already copied his rocks though, and I don't really want to paint Sharpedo plain brown anyway, because I feel like that's going to be a bit drab. Let's see what else we got. There are some pretty cool ground types in the decks though. We got Gliscor, Excadrill, Crocodile, Garchomp. These are all great looking Pokemon, but their color schemes are too easily mistaken for being dark types, and since the original Sharpedo is half dark, I'd like to move away from that if I can. I definitely don't want a rocky look either, so Onyx Geodude, you out of here. What about yellow? Sandshrew and Sandslash are pretty solid designs. I've always liked the pyramid looking brick patterns on Sandshrew, but that's not really gonna be appropriate here. Sandslash though? I could probably incorporate some of those spikes, maybe even his claws, into the design without betraying the fact that it's a shark. I don't know, let's see. So I took some epoxy sculpt and I rolled it out into some little worms and I started using those to make spikes. And, well... What do you guys think about this? Is this a good idea or is it a bit ridiculous? Am I just doing this because I feel like I have to do something? I don't know. Let me know what you think in the comments. Many minutes later. I don't know, man. I think they might be too weird. I don't
I just don't think they make sense.
Yeah, I'm ripping them off. Let's do something else. For the claws, I took some wooden barbecue skewers I had and some toothpicks and cut them to size. Using 2 different sizes of skewers and a toothpick gives me 3 differently sized claws, which makes them look more organic and less like they're just made out of toothpicks. I wrapped those in some clay and folded them into some fin shapes, and I stuck them right over Sharpedo's natural fins.
I don't think I like this either. Oh no. And this one's even upside down. I do think at this point, whether I like them or not is kind of a moot point. The material here is so thin that it's just kind of collapsing under its own weight. I feel like when I leave this to dry overnight, I'm going to come back to them being broken and I won't be able to remove them at that point. So I think I'm gonna have to come up with a different plan here.
I didn't really want the fins to be that big, so I held up my toothpick claw assemblies to Sharpedo's fins, and I marked where the sizes of the 2 things line up, and then I clipped the fins off at that point and I glued the claws on. I feel like making an irreversible change like this is gonna force me to stop chickening out and actually make a decision. I rolled out some little snakes of clay and I wrapped them around the fins to smooth out that transition point. I gave him some eyebrows as well to give him a little bit more personality, and since he doesn't have to swim anymore, he doesn't need to be as streamlined, so this bulks him out a bit. It makes him look more like a burrowing animal in my opinion. While I'm at it, I'm actually a fan of those old school style Pokemon eyes, so I drew some out on a piece of thick paper to incorporate them into the sculpt. Ah, look at him, he looks so mad. I gave both the Rocky base and Sharpedo himself a coat of matte black primer. But I did learn my lesson from last week. So I decided I wanted to give Sharpedo himself a coat of white to make it easier to, wait, what? Okay, who left a white cap on this can? It was probably Chris. I am so sure it was Chris. I mean, okay, to be honest, it does look kind of cool, but it's really not what I want. So let's try again and give him a coat of, what the fuck? What the hell is wrong with this paint? Are you guys seeing this? Let me try and clean that off real quick.
Please. Show me. I'm gonna be honest with you, this white paint really screwed me over. I feel like I'm gonna have a really nasty texture now. Gold would have actually been okay as a base coat, so I kind of regret doing this. I don't really know how much of a problem it's going to be until I base coat it again, but I guess we'll just see and deal with it from there.
If you guys feel bad for me, my Patreon and my coffee links are in the description.
All right, damage report. Looking at him after he's been black bombed again, it's not quite as bad as I anticipated. There is a little bit of texture, but it's not like that doesn't make sense, you know? He doesn't need to be streamlined to go through the water anymore. He's a little bit more rough and tumble now anyway, so I don't hate that. There is some lost detail. That's just a fact. The features are a lot smoother now if you compare it especially to the footage of when I accidentally painted him gold. He's a lot more detailed in that than he is now. Although that's not all bad, because my transitions between the sculpted bits and the original bits are looking really smooth now. You can't really see the difference there. So, I mean, that's something. That's looking on the bright side. Obviously, I do regret painting him white at all because the gold, like I said before, would have been fine. And I just wanted to paint over it because it wasn't normal, you know, but it would have been fine. But that's just me with the benefit of hindsight, you know. Obviously, I could, you know, put him in chemicals and strip the paint and start totally over. But I do consider myself to be the type of crafter who can roll with the punches. And this certainly feels like a punch, so let's roll, baby.
All right, let's get this guy painted, I guess. I'm stealing the color palette from Sand Slash. For a base coat, I'm gonna go with Bone White. The coverage is honestly not very good, obviously, but after a few coats, it looks fine. My other shades, I'll use Plague Brown and Beastly Brown. They went down with a bit more success, so that's good. I decided to paint the roof of his mouth purple. I don't really have any reason to justify this. I just thought he could use some more color, but I painted his tongue the more expected color of red. And to bring out the detail, I gave him an all-over wash with some watered down brown shoe polish, but I immediately regretted it, so let me hit Control Z on that real quick. For the rocky base, just a little bit of burnt umber. Whoa, okay, that's a lot. I mixed that with black to get a mostly black color. Didn't need that much umber. And then on top of that, I do a pretty heavy overbrush of some dark gray. And then on top of that, I'm gonna dry brush with a medium gray. And then to bring out some shadow, it's a black wash with some black shoe polish. I did not regret it this time, at least. I hit both the base and Sharpedo with a matte varnish to protect them from any damage. Lord knows they've been through enough at this point. I also took some gloss varnish and I brushed it inside the mouth because I think having some parts matte and some parts glossy goes a long way towards adding some life to this figure. To be honest, I've never used this type of gloss varnish before, and I did put on too much, and now Sharpedo kind of looks like he's foaming at the mouth, but Nico says it looks cool. This is a note from the future after I recorded all that. I actually ended up not fixing it, but sort of accentuating it with some woohoo glue. Some woohoo glue. So this is just like a very sticky glue that you put it down on a piece of card or something and you let it sit for a little bit just to harden a little bit, and then you can put that on a toothpick and then you can apply it to your model and make it into like a stringy shape, and it'll start to look like slobber, or if you mix it with red paint it could be blood or it can be slime or any kind of effect like that. So I did not fix the bubbles, but I did justify them, which is almost as good. To make the eyes glossy and also add some depth, I put in a drop of UV resin. This is resin that cures using ultraviolet light rather than a chemical reaction between two parts. It was not necessary for me to turn off the lights. I just thought it would look neat. It looks okay. The last step is to glue Sharpedo to his rocky base, and yeah, we done, son! All right, guys, that's it. If I have any main takeaways from this video, it would probably be to try to not get so negative in the beginning or in the middle of a project. In the video editing world, we have this phrase, kill your babies, and what it really means is that sometimes it is really easy to get attached to things that you did put work into, but sometimes for the greater good of the project, the best thing to do is to actually scrap those things. That's actually called the sunk cost fallacy. You think that just because you worked on something, that gives it more value, but sometimes these things, you just need to scrap them, you know? So yeah, I definitely killed some babies during this build, but I think that I'm better off for it. Wait, feel free to leave a like on the, what is on my thumb? And if you like me and you want to see me again, feel free to subscribe. And until next time, remember to stay positive, stay creative, and, you know, feel free to pat yourself on the back once in a while. If you did anything today that was hard for you, even if it was just getting out of bed, if it was hard and you did it, it's okay to feel proud of yourself. And you know what? I feel proud of you too. See you next week.